Hello everyone and welcome back to Naomi's Bookshelf. We're going to discuss The Mother of the Brontes, When Maria Met Patrick by Sharon Wright. So this was the first book for our Fierce Women's Book Club, which we discuss books about chronic illness or chronic pain. I really enjoyed this one. This one is about Maria and it talked about her life. She did not live a very monumental life, aside from maybe giving birth to her 3 children who became famous. She gave birth to more than 3 children, but those are the 3 that we all know and love, being Charlotte, Anne, and Emily. I think this book was really interesting because it took someone from history who we don't really have much documentation about. However, it taught us about her. Like there's enough research there to make a book out of it, which I really enjoyed. This follows from Maria's parents, actually, all the way back when they were trying to have children and when they started moving to their current home where she was born and lived for most of her life. This is about her family history and or her immediate family history, I should say, and then how she moved on and met Patrick Bronte. I thought that this was really interesting with the way it was well researched. I felt like it had a lot of interesting letters involved. The book as well has, I'm going to show you here at the very end, there's an appendix which has all of her letters from the summer where she met Patrick, and that's not a spoiler, it's in the subtitle. However, there's also here a text that she wrote, like a pamphlet, in the appendix as well. So that was really great to read her own words. I really enjoyed reading the letters and the pamphlet just to see what she actually thought about things and how she communicated with people. I thought that was wonderful. So I really liked how this just dove straight into the different elements that she lived through. This book wasn't only about her because of the documentation. It's so difficult to find anything that's on someone who's not famous. I really appreciated how Sharon Wright dove into that, how she actually looked at different things. So like the Napoleonic War and how she went to the town where they were living, which was Penaz, if I'm saying that correctly. And she looked at that from the time that Maria would actually be there and what life events would have actually affected her, certain theater events or certain militia in the area, certain naval aspects. And then also focused on her family and how they would have survived or how things would have happened to them. There's a lot of newspaper articles about, or obituaries, I mean, when her parents died and when her family members died. They were all kind of put in there intentionally, which I really liked that aspect of the research. And it often was saying things like, at this time there was this play, and then that is something she could have gone to. So that was also really interesting to see, because even though we don't have evidence that she went, it was nice to see things that would have happened around her. I also loved that she was part of a little book club, a little lending library that was limited in its membership, but they read books and they had to read them within 2 weeks or they would be in serious trouble. And so they read things like Pride and Prejudice, which I really liked that. I loved that they had I love that she included book lists in this. I think that it was very interesting and it showed how Maria grew into this woman who was strong and determined and she could speak her mind. I thought that was really interesting. I really appreciated that. I also really loved how when she went to go help her aunt with the school for boys, how it showed her and Patrick's relationship growing up, her and Pat's, as they called him. He walked 12 miles every day, or every time he went to see her, he walked 12 miles there and 12 miles back because he was in love. And I thought that was so romantic. I think that this showed well the relationship and how it started. And then it did talk about the family and the children as they were born and what happened in their household. And I felt like that was pretty succinct. I enjoyed that aspect a lot actually of this. And I felt like it showed every day in a Georgian woman's life on kind of bridging that gap between Georgian and Victorian era. So I thought that was really interesting. I did have a couple complaints about this though. I wish, as this was a book for chronic illness and none of us had read it before, we had no way of knowing that it is not about her chronic illness in any way, shape, or form until the end when she suffered from cancer, and that was really when it was present, and showed her pain, but even then it didn't show the strength I would have wanted for her. And I can't speak to her life because that was the time, maybe she was required to be on her sickbed, but I wish that she had been shown as a stronger woman through that. That was really my hope for this book. And I really loved how strong she was all through her life, and, you know, her social awareness and savvy. I thought it was wonderful, but then at the end I felt like I was kind of let down in that. And I did appreciate, though, how it showed after her death and how the family survived and moved on. So that was happy for me, I guess. My one other complaint, in a way, would be that it felt kind of slog-ish in points. I read this over the course of like 2 weeks, and it's a pretty short book, and I feel like I should have been able to fly through it faster. So I felt like maybe it was just not as connecting for me, or I just didn't grasp the connection, the word, as much. But I do really appreciate what this book did. I appreciate that Sharon Wright took someone from history who we know is famous only because of her children, and yet she made a book all about her. So I really like that. I wish there were more books out there like this, where it was like, here's a person from history and this is what their life was like. I know that The Five by Hallie Runefeld is like that, and I really liked that aspect of this. So that's one thing I definitely want to see more of in books, especially nonfiction about women throughout history. Something that's very interesting in here was when she became Mrs. Bronte. I loved the quote. Let me find it. This is one thing that I loved about this book, because I didn't know that the name Bronte was so unique only to them. And so I found that to be really interesting, and I loved this quote. So this is right when Maria's marrying Patrick. It says that Maria walked out into the winter light with her new husband, not as Mrs. Prunty, which was his birth name, but as the first, last, and only Mrs. Bronte. So she has this recognition of being the only Mrs. Bronte. It's so interesting to me that for such a well-known name in the book and classic community, that it was made up, and there's only one Mrs. Bronte ever, because her son never married, which is just such an interesting idea to me. I really like that aspect. I think my biggest takeaway from this book is that you can live a normal life, you can be a nobody, and yet you can impact the world in ways you can never imagine. I think that Maria had no idea of what her ambitions would turn into. Her love of knowledge, her love of reading, her love of communicating that through writing. She tried it. And her husband's writing, and she had no idea how that would impact her children even after she had passed on. I think that's something that's just so important, because Maria had no idea when she had her 5 children that 3 of them, not 6 children, when she had 3 of them, they would go on to write famous literary works that would be inspiring people from all over the world to discuss and debate. She had no idea her impact on the future just by having these children, and by having a home that was open to imagination and open to learning. That was just such a wonderful thing for me to read, and that's something I definitely took away from this book. I think for having lived only 39 years, Maria had a pretty amazing life, and she left a mark on our world in spite of her knowledge. She did some very independent things, and she was willing to work with her husband to do the betterment for their children. And I think that she is an interesting woman, and I wish we knew more about her. I wish there were more documents about her, but there isn't. So this is what we have to be happy with. And I think that Sharon Wright did a great job in compiling all of the documentation she could in regards to the Brontes, in regards to Maria, and in regards to their family histories. I think it's very important and very practical, and I really appreciated this book. I don't know how many times I can say that, but I did. So that's my review of The Mother of the Brontes by Sharon Wright. Also, interesting note, I am such a Jane Austen fan that whenever I read the word Maria in a book, especially a classic, I always pronounce it as Mariah in my head because of Mansfield Park. So this book was a little struggle for me trying to read and be like, it's not Mariah, it's Maria. But funny story. Apparently I'm just a Janeite through and through. But let's move on to the next month's pick. So our next book club pick will be for March and for April, and that is Emily Dickinson Letters. This is an Every Man's Library Pocket Poets edition. It's very tiny and it should be easy to get your hands on. I found it at my local bookstore. I had to order it, but not a problem. So if you would like to join us, we would love to have you join in. From my research, I understand that Emily Dickinson had chronic illness with her eyes, and her eyesight was affected into her adult years. But I am interested to know more from her own words how life was for her. It's very interesting to me to read people's letters. It really is like a window to their soul. So that will be our next book for our book club. So please let me know down in the comments if you have read The Mother of the Brontes, what you thought of it. I would love to talk to you down in the comments below with it. Also, if you are going to read the Emily Dickinson Letters with us, or if you have a recommendation for someone else who had a chronic illness throughout history, we would love to have more people on our list. So please leave a link or please leave a name down below, and maybe if you want to tell me why, that'd be wonderful to hear as well, or a book that you recommend about them. All of these things in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you are new here, and I will see you next time with another video. Bye for now.